Okay, so should you buy an iPhone that's a max size device? That is the topic of today's video. Now, I've been using max devices since the XS Max, the 12 Pro Max, the 11 Pro Max, the 13 Pro Max, and the reason that spurred this video on is we have a 14 Max coming this year, as well as a 14 Pro Max, so there's likely to be two Max devices. Is this thing something you should buy if you haven't had a Max phone before? Not really much in the way of the difference with the designs usually of the Max devices and the smaller phone. They simply just take the bigger design or the smaller design and blow it up to a larger Max styled device. I find that the weight does make a substantial difference when comparing these phones. So the iPhone 13 Pro definitely feels a lot lighter, as does the 11 Pro to the Pro Max, as does the XS to the XS Max, as does the 12 Pro to 12 Pro Max. It's about a 20% increase usually if you go over to the Max phone. And what it really does in my experience is it just kind of tires my hand a little bit in heavier use, especially of one hand. I kind of find myself doing this a little bit more, going side to side, kind of, just to make sure I don't get no carpal tunnel or anything going on in my fingers, anything like that, or wrist pain or something right here. If you use this a long time, you might experience a little bit of hand fatigue. And I'm not talking, use it for an hour straight. I'm talking like you're on your phone for like 8 hours straight. I don't know why you would be, but some people tend to get into the funk of watching some YouTube videos, being on social media, and the next thing they know, it's been 4 or 5 hours and they're still on their phone. So next area where I find this phone to be just a little bit more cumbersome, or the Max device, is in things like exercise, activities, and sports. If you do wear shorts and you're doing your runs or whatever, you'll see people with armbands with the Max phones because they'll just flop and fly around in their shorts. They don't fit sometimes. For the ladies, sometimes they have smaller pockets. You'll see the phone, you'll see the camera, the whole top of the phone just sticking out of their pocket because the phone simply doesn't fit there. So definitely, you got to adapt to the size here when it comes to things like that. You might have to put it in a bag, use the AirPods so it's not flopping around in your shorts, stuff like that. So in those situations, I find that the Max phone is just a little bit cumbersome. Okay, so this next one is not uncommon, but you ever had your phone kind of like, you're kind of looking at it in the bed or whatever? I've literally had this phone fall on my face. Now, this is not a reason not to get it. You simply don't have to use your phone in that fashion, but I have actually had 13 Pro Max hit me in the face, and it was not pretty. I'd rather have had the 13 Pro fall on my face. I don't want any phone to fall on my face, but if I had the choice, it would be a lighter phone. So what I'm saying is that weight definitely contributes. If you ever had that moment where you just dropped your phone in the bed and hit you in your face, and this doesn't happen often, but I had to mention that. It's just something I noticed I didn't find very fun with that heavier iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, moving on, the bigger device also does give me issues fitting. I find this thing to kind of be a little bit, tricky for certain vehicles. If you have a smaller vehicle, for example, you might have a smaller center console where you do store the GPS or you store your phone, whatever. It might not fit properly. Now, a lot of newer cars are adapting to this, so if you do have a newer vehicle, it's not an issue. But if you don't have a vehicle, this won't matter to you. At the same time, fitting this in certain GPS holders is kind of annoying for some people. It just doesn't fit. Also, certain GPS holders that you stick on a window, if you get a cheap model, this might actually collapse and just fall off the window because it's too heavy, and that GPS holder that you put on your window just simply does not support the weight of this phone. So keep that in mind. If you are looking for, something that's a little bit more compact in your car, this is not going to be the best option for you when it comes to GPS. Another thing that kind of irritates me in the area of should you buy the Max is if you're looking for getting a Max phone because you want some kind of split screen or you think you're going to take better advantage. The truth of the matter is you don't really get much of an advantage over the 13 Pro when it comes to what you can actually do with the phone. You simply don't. You're just simply getting a larger viewing area. But there's not yet any way to split the screen. Hopefully in iOS 16 they bring something like that here in a month, or not even a month, a few weeks. Hopefully we see some split screen with the developer preview. However, right now it's still just one app at a time, and it really just doesn't feel like you're doing anything, overly serious here when it comes to using the phone. It just feels like a single app at a time. So I don't feel like I'm really taking advantage of that. And lastly, a couple other things I just want to mention. Again, these phones are really going to feel, both of them, large. It comes on the perspective of the person's hand, body dimensions, the size of the person you are. If you're a smaller person and you try to use the 13 Pro, this might even feel big to you. So for me, the Max feels kind of a normal size, a little bit big, but kind of a normal size. There's still some irritating factors whether you're a large person or not, but you really got to look at how does this fit in your hand dimensions, your size of a person. If you're a smaller person, this might just be a huge donkey phone to you. Honestly, this phone right here might be perfect for you. You might even like the mini more. So you got to remember, when you guys are commenting about, oh, the Max is the best thing on the planet, not for everybody. You have to look at other people's perspectives as well. And these are the last quirks I'm going to point out about this iPhone 13 Pro Max. And this goes for all the Maxes. This is not just the 13 Pro Max. Again, this phone is just here to represent the Max devices. But the last one is, I feel like there is less privacy on the larger iPhone in public, in less discreet. It's just less discreet overall. So for example, if you're adding up something, somebody's going to see over your shoulder that you're adding 500 plus 300. Not that it matters to you all the time. They don't know exactly what you're adding. The fact of the matter is, if you're in messages or phone calls, or you're dialing something, or you're checking a bank app or something private, you kind of got to hold back on that. If you're, say, on the bus, if you're, say, you're just in close quarters with people in public, if you're in stadium seating in a concert, for example, where somebody sits up behind you higher, they can just peek over your shoulder and see everything you're doing because your screen is massive. Now, you can get around this by simply ordering a privacy screen protector on eBay or Amazon, something like that. But some people don't like how those look because they kind of put like shades on your phone, and then you kind of don't see the full screen quality. So that's just something to note. It's not quite as private, I'd say. Even if you have this thing sticking on the window and a GPS, if you don't have tints on your windows in the back, somebody could probably see where you're going, or at least they could see your screen and the navigation things you're doing. Even when you're doing camera, like if you're doing a video, everyone's gonna know you're doing a video on that big old Max phone. If you have the iPhone mini or the iPhone SE, something small like that, nobody's really knowing what you're doing on that little phone. So it depends. How do you feel about that? If you don't give a hoot, then it doesn't really matter. But if you care a lot about people not peeking over, if you're in public a lot, on the train, the bus, whatever, you're in those type of situations, you might like the smaller phone a little bit more. It keeps you a little bit more private, I would say. All right, guys, so the first area where this phone is just absolutely amazing and I think beats the 13 Pro is gonna be in the area of just kind of like the reading experience. It's just a little bit better. It's bigger, easier to read. Now, it doesn't necessarily give you too much more content, but just kind of perusing an article or whatever, it's just more spacious, it's more enjoyable. You're wondering, why is your 13 Pro screen not looking yellow? It's because I don't have True Tone on. That's why. If it looks a little more white to you, things like that. But overall, I gotta say, this phone right here is just a better reading experience, slightly better for sure. The next area has got to be the typing experience. Hey, this is a test of the typing on the phone. It's so accurate. It's a large experience, a super large keyboard. It's just great. It's just great. So definitely, and it has a great autocorrect as well. So just definitely a very fast typing experience, very large keyboard spaciousness, even with the swipe texting. It is awesome. So definitely gotta put the little emoji with the little sunglasses, a sunny day. But listen, it's just a great typing experience overall. It definitely beats this phone. Next one is videos are just more enjoyable as well. So if you are watching a video, for example, you're gonna find that you just have a better viewing experience here on the iPhone 13 Pro Max or any of the Max devices that came before it versus the smaller phone. You're just gonna find this thing to be an absolute dream of a video experience. So I would say when you're traveling or whatever, and you're gonna do, watching movies on the plane, stuff like that, this is gonna be definitely the way to go. So if you find yourself constantly consuming a lot of content, the bigger phone is always the better experience. And I'm gonna state the obvious on this next one. I sound like a broken record player, but the battery life, we know for a fact that the iPhone 13 Pro Max is great. The Pro Max on the 12 is also great. The Pro Max on the 11 Pro Max was great. The XS Max was good. Not great, but it was better than the smaller phone. It's, you're always getting the better battery life. There's just point blank. You're going to last a lot longer on the bigger phone. Now, a lot of people use their phones a lot today, so that's a big deal. So definitely if you care a lot about battery life, heavy use all day, Max phone, you got to deal with those quirks that I talked about earlier because it's going to be the phone you should get. Now, next up is the camera experience. Now, these two phones have identical cameras on them, but I find always having the larger iPhone is the better experience. And the reason why, especially if you do a lot of photography, is you just have a smaller framing area on the smaller phone. Smaller screen means a smaller area to frame those photos. So I would say unless you're somebody who's not super serious, I mean, you can be super serious and use a Pro. Obviously, it's a Pro phone. I'm just saying if you go all out on photography and video, the larger phone provides you a bigger area to edit your videos, your photos, and all of that. And I think it's just a little bit better than having the smaller screen, especially if you're super serious. Now, I talked about earlier how it can be cumbersome with certain cars and things like that with the whole GPS experience, but I can tell you right now that the actual maps though is huge on the Max phone. So at the same time, while it can be cumbersome, it's also great, especially if you can fit it on your GPS holder. You have an amazing big size. And when you turn this thing into landscape mode, you also have a massive experience, just an amazing overall GPS experience once you actually get it fitted properly on your bike, your car, whatever you're doing, your walking directions. Next up, your Max phone costs you more when you first buy it. So that means you get more back when you sell it. So definitely you are investing more to get the phone, but you're going to get more money back out of it. Now, you don't buy these phones as investments to begin with. They don't hold their value at all. They lose value. But at the same time, you lose more when you get the smaller Pro because the Max device is always a little bit more desirable. It's bigger, longer battery life, longer lasting battery, things like that. So it always nets you more cash back. Also, this one's kind of petty, but I don't really care about this. But this, for some people, they truly do care about the flex factor. You want to flex their device and they want to say, I got the best iPhone in the room. You're like into flexing and stuff like that. I'm not really into that. But if you are, you know, the Max phone always is going to have a little bit more flexing than the smaller iPhone. So in conclusion, at least here in America, everybody thinks bigger is better. Ford F-150 is constantly one of the best selling vehicles in this country. That is one of the biggest vehicles you can buy as well. You know, you could just see everything bigger is better. It's kind of this idea everybody has: bigger house, bigger car, bigger phone, everything bigger, better. Yeah. Not everybody agrees. Personally, I don't fully agree with that. I think it's more like personal preference, what suits your life the best. But at the same time, one area where this phone is just actually better, and one of the reasons I use it more than the smaller Pro, provides you better battery backup, increased visibility on everything you do day to day. And I find if you're someone who likes to travel without laptops, tablets, you like to travel light, but you want everything in one, the Max phone is a pretty good option there. If you're the type of person who likes a lightweight, you're active, you're on a bike, it's just, you know, you're using a car that you just don't want it taking up a bunch of space everywhere, and you bring your tablet or your iPad or something along with you, you know, most of the time, the 13 Pro, excellent option for you. Thumbs up if you found the video helpful. Subscribe if you haven't already. I want to hear your thoughts on the Max size devices versus the regular iPhones. Which way are you tending this year? Do you flip-flop back and forth? Do you still not know? Are you still confused? Drop your questions, your comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.